Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Canton Planning Commission for November 1st. Gosh, I can't believe it's November already. As usual, we always like to begin our meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance. And if you don't have a flag handy, you can just look at mine. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Commissioner Okan, will you call the attendance for the commission, please?
Sure will. Commissioner Engel.
Yes, Craig Engel here, Canton Township, Michigan, Wayne County.
Commissioner Eggenberg.
Yes, Northbrook, Illinois.
Commissioner Weber. You're muted, Mr. Weber.
Yes, present. Canton Township, Wayne County, Michigan.
Commissioner Acharya.
Yes, Canton Township, Michigan, Wayne County.
Commissioner Okan here, Wayne County, Canton, Michigan, and Commissioner Green.
Yes. Wayne County, Michigan, Canton Township. All right. So we have minutes from our October 4th meeting. Do I hear a motion, or can we entertain a motion to approve those minutes from October 4th?
So moved.
Support.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Eggenberger to approve those minutes of October 4th. Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on that, please?
Sure. Commissioner Engel.
Yes,
Commissioner Eggenberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
Commissioner Acharya.
Yes,
Commissioner Okan, yes, and Commissioner Green.
Yes. Okay, tonight we have 4 items on our agenda. Is there anything that staff would like to add to that? Patrick?
No additions to the agenda.
All right, anything from the commission? Okay, do I hear a motion to accept tonight's agenda of the 4 listed items?
So moved.
support.
Oh, there we go. Go ahead, Craig.
Okay.
I'll give Craig that one. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Engel on accepting the agenda. Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on that, please?
Sure. Commissioner Engel.
Yes,
Commissioner Eggenberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
Commissioner Acharya.
yes,
Commissioner Okan, yes, and Commissioner Green.
Yes. Okay, and we'll get right into it. We're going to go to a public hearing of the Dogology University, where we're considering a special land use and site plan amendments. This property is located south of Ford Road between Sheldon and Morton Taylor. It's a proposed expansion of an existing facility. Patrick, could you tell us more, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one may sound familiar. We've looked at it a couple different times. The first time we looked at it was for a special land use for the building itself. And during that review, it was discovered that the southern 10 feet of the building is actually in the OSP off-street parking zoning district. And so the special land use was previously approved for the C2 zoned portion of the building. And at the last Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission also held a public hearing to rezone the southern 10 feet of the building from OSP to C2, as well as an additional 30 feet south, which includes the row of parking just south of the building. And the reason for that proposed rezoning to C2 south of the building is first to allow the southern 10 feet of the building to be used for the indoor training and boarding facility, and also for an outdoor area for a bathroom area for dogs. And specifically, there is a proposal in the plans this evening that would remove about 4 parking spaces and enclose those spaces with a high opaque fence. And it would open directly to the southern door. So it would provide an outdoor bathroom area for dogs where they could walk straight out of the south door and into a fenced in enclosed area. So the dog would be with the handler the entire time. And if for some reason the dog was off the leash, you go straight to the door into the fenced in area. There's no outdoor parking lot area. So that was added by the applicant for security reasons. So in order for the applicant to be eligible to make the application for an expansion of the special land use, they applied for the rezoning. It was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. And last Thursday, the Township Board held the first reading of that rezoning and unanimously approved the first reading. The second reading of the rezoning will be next Tuesday night, November 9th. And barring any unforeseen circumstances, we anticipate approval of the C2 rezoning for the southern 10 feet and 30 feet south of the building. So our recommendation for the special land use is approval of the proposed expansion of the special land use and approval of the proposed site plan changes for the expansion of the indoor pet boarding and training facility, subject to the following conditions. First, that the Township Board approves the second reading of the rezoning application for C2 for the subject area. And second, that the site maintains the standards of the previously approved site plans, with the exception of the approved exterior changes, and meets the noise standards of the zoning ordinance. And the previous site plan included the parking layout, the drive south of the building. That will not change except for the removal of about 4 spaces. The landscape area, the pond area, the lighting, dumpster area, all that will remain the same on the proposed plans. So that concludes our report, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. And so because this is a public hearing, we do need to open said public hearing. Do I hear a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second,
All right, we've got a motion to open the public hearing on this project by Commissioner Engel and support by Commissioner Weber. Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on that, please?
Sure. Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
yes.
Commissioner Artaria,
Yes.
Commissioner Okan, yes, Commissioner Green.
Yes. And so our public hearing is open at 7:15. Patrick, is the project representative here tonight or in Zoom land?
The representative, I don't see him in the audience, and I don't see anybody with their hand raised. I remember when we discussed this that it would be on the agenda, but I don't know if maybe I should have followed up on more time just to verify it, but I don't really see him out in the audience right now.
All right, then let me.
Him and I have talked at length about this, so if there are any questions, I can try my best to answer those.
Okay, well, in the past, commission, and I didn't always agree with this. The commission always felt like there should be at least one representative from a project. Otherwise, you table it and move on. I'm not exactly in agreement with that in all areas. So I would hope that the commission would like to proceed. We have dealt with this project, I don't know how many times now. So it really is not a big deal that they have a representative here tonight. We know what it's about. And if it's my understanding is correct, Patrick, we're just taking care of a little tidying up of the property boundary in terms of the zoning. And it's contingent upon the board following through with a complete approval of that one change to the zoning. Is that correct? Because
yeah, there would be that, especially as it relates to using the entire floor area of the building and having that zone properly. So expanding that area throughout the building is definitely something that the applicant wants to do.
Right.
The only exterior change proposed and the only expansion of the special land use proposed in the exterior is to have, measures 17 feet deep by 48 feet wide. They call it an outdoor break area, but it's basically it's a 6-foot vinyl fenced in area, and the yard is proposed to have sand. So it's really a break yard where dogs can go to the bathroom and they can easily clean it up through the sand.
Okay, all right. And that, Commissioner Eggenberger, did you have something to say?
Well, I agree with you, Greg. I think, I don't have any questions. So whether the person is there or not, it's not an issue because I'm all set.
I'm good to
Okay, well,
go.
I'd agree.
all right, let's proceed then. Patrick, is there anyone else in the audience with a hand raised?
I see one person in the audience with their hand raised. The name is Lorenzo.
Okay,
So
this is a public hearing, so.
Lorenzo, you're able to talk. If you could provide your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Patrick. My name is Lorenzo Toya. I'm here with my wife, Heather Toya. We live at 2046 Brookline Street. We share the, if anything, the southern border of this property. We have 2 dogs. There's an old chain link fence in place, and we were just concerned of the opacity in between the space. The grass on the other side of our fence is currently being used. It sounds like this won't take place forever as long as they get the outdoor space in place. Now we don't have any sidewalks, so it's not of too much concern, but they are walking dogs up and down the street to where the sidewalk ends, and that does, introducing strange dogs regularly does provide some dismay among our pets and our baby who shares the our northern wall closest to the property. So we're concerned about the grass and the opacity between our 2 properties, which sounds like it might have been settled already.
Okay, so you are right next to the southern parking lot then?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
With the grass, I believe you called it a pond between our property and the parking lot.
Gotcha, okay. All right, well, thank you for your comments and being here with us tonight to proceed with this process. Any other concerns you might have?
Not at this time.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else, Patrick, in the audience that has their hand raised?
I don't see anybody else in the audience with their hand raised.
Then do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, we've got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Okan and support by Commissioner Eggenberger. Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on that, please?
Sure, Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Ataria,
Yes.
Commissioner Okan, yes, and Commissioner Green.
Yes, okay, the public hearing is closed at 7:20. All right, very quickly, we'll just go right to the commission. Commissioner Engel,
I'm all set. I have no questions on this project.
Commissioner Eggenberger,
I'm also all set.
Commissioner Okan,
I am all set, thank you.
and Commissioner Weber.
Just one thing I want to make sure we're clear on it to address the neighbor's concern. Patrick, the grassy area that he's referring to would be on the south side of the parking lot, correct?
That's correct. And
And
I'll
that's,
share my screen here just to illustrate.
And I'm looking at the site plan myself right now, but that area will remain grassy because it's going to be a retention area, correct?
That's correct.
And what will there's no intent for them to be using this area for the dogs, is there?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I mean, that's the whole point of having the fenced area up near the building, right?
That's the main reason. I think if they're walking them to give them exercise and they're in the public right of way, I'm not sure if there's anything that we can necessarily do about that, just because
Right.
of the nature of the use. But that fenced in area that's just south of the building here, where it shows parking spaces 7 6, 7, 8, 9 that are proposed to be filled in. This is the area that they're proposing for the fenced in area, the 6-foot high vinyl opaque fence where it would go directly from the building outdoors into this fenced in area. So the hope would be if they're just out for a bathroom break, they could use that area.
Yeah, I just wanted to put the neighbors' mind at ease that they're not gonna have dogs out playing and running around in the yard right adjacent to their property all day long.
Right, and the definition of indoor pet boarding and training facility, it doesn't allow for outdoor runs and outdoor exercise areas. So this would be exclusive for like a break yard. They can use the bathroom, but they wouldn't be able to use it as an exercise area or a run.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm good now, Commissioner, or
You
Mr.
good?
Chairman. Yeah, I'm good, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
All right, Commissioner Acharya.
I'm good too. Thank you.
Okay, the only concern, did I call on everybody? Did I call on you, Commissioner Okan?
Yes, I'm good.
Yes, okay. The only concern that I have is not really so much from the use of the facility, but the facility's clients. So as a dog owner myself, I can see where somebody might come into the lot, take the dog out of the car and think, oh, well, let's make sure they've gone to the bathroom before we go into the facility. And they take the dog over to that pond or that area over there. Now I know how my dogs react to smells and stuff. And so the neighbor to the south, they were gonna have to contend with that. There's no way we can stop that, is there? In terms of the customers that are coming in with their pets and letting them go to the bathroom in that area.
I don't think that there is. Anecdotally, when I had my dog and I would go to Petco or the groomer, anywhere from the parking lot to the building itself. So maybe like a foundational landscape area or a parking lot landscape area by the building. If the dog had to go to the bathroom, that would be somewhere between where I parked and where the building would be.
Yeah. Okay, well, that, it's a minor concern, but it's still a kind of a concern because, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Weber.
Where is is this their entrance over here on the left side of the building?
That would be the parking lot entrance, yeah.
Okay. I guess I understand what you're saying, Mr. Chairman. I think though, I hope it's a successful business, but I'll be shocked if there ever is a need where they have that many customers at one time where they're using these parking spots 10 through 19 down here. That they have to take a dog over here to this grass area. I understand what you're saying, but it may be a problem once in a while, but I can't see it being a big problem.
Well, the reason that is a concern to me is that times when my wife and I have taken our dogs, let's say to the vet, and there's a parking situation where the actual parking spots are on the other side of the lot, and there's a grassy area adjacent to it. A lot of times we'll take them out and let them go, pee right there, before taking them into the facility. So, I can see it happening. I just don't know that there's anything we can do about that.
Yeah, I get it.
Signage maybe, where you say, please don't let your dog pee here or something like that. But I can't see that as a requirement for this project.
Right.
The other concern that I have is the parking. People tend to do things that they think are more expedient. So is there the possibility that the parking on Brookline becomes an issue because people don't even go into the lot with their vehicle, and they just park on Brookline and take their dog out and then cause congestion on Brookline? Is that something that we need to deal with?
That is a possibility. There is a row of parking along the west side of Brookline that's perpendicular to the road itself. So Brookline serves not just as the road, but as the parking aisle. And I believe that parking is in the road right away, and it's intended to serve the buildings to the west of that. But the people going to Dogology won't know that unless these parking spaces were marked.
So that might be a signage issue, having the no parking fire lane signs next to the building there on that would be the east side of the street, closest to Dogology or closest to the facility, right?
Oh, the east side, I don't think the east side people will park along there, but if there is a need for signage, we can work with public safety on that.
Well, you said that's the no parking side, right? Is the east side of Brookline, or is it the west side?
The west side has paved perpendicular parking.
Well,
and-
that's for that other office that's over there, I think. Isn't there like a real estate office?
Yes.
Yeah, there's an office here and then there's a row
Right.
of parking here.
Okay, all right, so on the east side, of the opposite side of that, is that a fire lane?
I don't think it's a travel lane for vehicles. I don't think cars can park there. I don't think it's wide enough for cars to park there.
So should we put signs, should public safety look into putting no parking signs there?
We can talk to public safety about that.
Yeah, because I could see where that could be a congested area if people just decide they're gonna run in real quick, and just park there instead of going into the parking lot. I don't know, people do strange things sometimes, so I think we need to think about the different contingencies. That's all that I had. Those were my concerns, and yeah, if you could, put that by public safety and see what they think about that issue. I know that I think the DDA paid for paving of that area back to a certain point on Brookline, which I think will make it a lot nicer back there, but it'll make it a lot more inviting for just coming in and parking too. So
Yeah,
To
this
your-
photo,
Just to your point, Mr. Chairman, about parking on that side of the street, I will say this. If people are inclined for people to park on that side of the street, it's not gonna be real convenient for them if they're coming in off Ford Road. I mean, they'd have to go and make a movement to turn around to park on that side of the road. So the chances of people doing it, unless they come through the parking lot and back around that way, but.
yeah, I see what you're saying. In
so,
order to face outward, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, any other concerns from the commission? All right, in light of that, then do I hear any kind of a motion coming from any of the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. I move to
Right ahead.
recommend approval of the expansion of the special land use for indoor pet boarding and training facility. Use on parcels 71057, 010013, 301 at 44125 Ford Road, as the request meets the special land use criteria of the Canton Township zoning ordinance pursuant to the information and plans provided, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the township board approves the second reading of the rezoning application of C2 for the subject area. And number two, that the site maintains the standards of the previously approved site plan, with the exception of the approved exterior changes, and meets the noise standards of section 7.02A of the zoning ordinance.
Support.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Engel and a support by Commissioner Weber. Any comments or concerns on that motion? I have one quick question for Patrick. At the southern part of the parking lot, there is no berming or a wall or any sort. How late is this facility slated to be open? Do you know what the time, what was the time stipulations on that? And the reason I'm asking that is I'm thinking about headlights. Okay, so let's say that, let's say if they were open now, okay, and people are coming to pick up their dog, and they go to that part of the lot and their headlights are facing south into the neighbor's yard. That's an annoyance. And there's nothing to block that. Did we deal with that at all?
There aren't hours of operation that were prescribed as conditions of approval with the special land use. When the facility went through site plan review a few years ago and they expanded the parking lot to the south, the parking was sized for a retail facility at that Mag Formers building, and that didn't have restrictions on hours of operation. And on that southern side of the property, they had to plant a dense row of evergreens. I think it's a staggered double row there, where eventually it would grow together in order to screen for just that purpose. So that row of evergreens is still there. And one of the conditions is that the site has to maintain the previous landscape plan. So if for some reason any shrubs or trees die, they have to be replaced according to the approved site plan.
All right, so hopefully that buffering will, will mitigate, any of that kind of light that comes in from cars and stuff like that. Okay. All right, that's all that I have. Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on this motion that we have on the floor?
Sure. Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Ingenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
yes,
Commissioner Artaria,
Yes.
Commissioner Okan, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Okay, so that we're a go on this now. The only thing that could hold this up would be the trustees, right? They have to make their approvals.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, well, let us proceed then. Let's go to the second item. It's the Canton Marketplace in Redwood at Marketplace, where we're considering final PDD on this property, which is located north of Michigan Avenue between Sheldon and Lily Road. Could you give us more detail, Patrick?
Yes, the applicant is proposing to construct a mixed-use plan development for 235 single-story apartments on 48 acres. And the density of that will be 4.9 units per acre and up to 77,940 square feet of commercial on just over 14 acres. This will be on the north side of Michigan Avenue and along both sides of Morton Taylor Road. The residential portion of the development includes two phases. Phase one includes the residential part west of Morton Taylor, paving of Morton Taylor to the north line of phase one, and construction of the stormwater pond that serves residential and future commercial areas in the phases on that side. Phase two includes a residential development on the east side of Morton Taylor Road, paving of Morton Taylor Road to the north end of their property where the Rouge Trailhead starts, and construction of the stormwater pond that serves residential and future commercial areas in those phases to the south. This one goes back roughly about a year and a half with the plan development, and the preliminary plan development was actually approved by the Board of Trustees on July 28th of 2020, which was previously recommended for approval by the Planning Commission on July 13th of 2020. And that was just in the middle of the COVID times when I think we were meeting at the Village Theater. And so around those times when we were having those meetings, that's when the preliminary plan development was approved. Shortly thereafter, the applicants had filed for a final plan development and for a site plan review. And it's taken a while to get to the point of having the public hearing on the final plan development. There have been some access management items that have been worked out with the applicant and also with MDOT. There has also been some environmental work in terms of finding the boundaries of the wetlands and trying to finalize the site layout based on those conditions. So it's been a little bit longer of a process, I think, just because of the size of the project and the complexity of the project. And so now we're at the point of having the public hearing on the final plan development. The final plan development plan retains the same number of residential units and commercial floor area and the same phasing that was approved at the preliminary PD plan. The following major changes have been made since the PD approval. And in general, there's three major changes that we note here. The first is that there have been the removal of some access points from Michigan Avenue. In addition to the access from Morton Taylor Road, which is the main access to the site, the preliminary PD plan included 3 curb cuts from Michigan Avenue west of Morton Taylor and 2 curb cuts from Michigan Avenue east of Morton Taylor. The final PD plan removes one of these curb cuts west of Morton Taylor and one of the curb cuts east of Morton Taylor. So in addition to the main Morton Taylor entrance, there are 3 curb cuts onto Michigan Avenue instead of 5 that were at preliminary PD. And these additional 3 curb cuts, 2 of them are at the far opposite ends of the site to space out those access points. And the other curb cut is west of Morton Taylor Road. Based on the parcel configuration, it was put in an area where it could make the commercial area along that part of Michigan Avenue most accessible. The second major change has been additional sidewalks in the residential areas. The PD plan at preliminary included sidewalks on only one side of the residential streets. And we had worked with the applicants in trying to get more sidewalks in the area. And so the final PD plan before you this evening includes sidewalks on both sides of the residential streets. And the third major item is the increase in open space and wetland preservation. The preliminary PD plan included just over 26 acres of open space, and the final PD plan includes 2 additional acres of open space. In addition, the preliminary PD plan included almost 1.76 acres of regulated wetlands, and the final PD plan includes almost 3.46 acres of regulated wetlands. So there's more wetland preserved on the final PD plan. As a result of increasing the amount of sidewalk, that pushes some of those buildings back in order to preserve those front yard setbacks and those driveways, to keep the driveways still long enough to park cars in them. By adding 5-foot sidewalks, a lot of those units have been pushed back an additional 5 feet. And so that's resulted in some tighter configurations. And one of the challenges trying to expand the sidewalk and still maintain the natural features preservation, which the plan does. So as a result, though, some of the units have gotten tighter together, mostly the rear to rear separation and some of the side to rear separations. And some of those modifications I'll get into in a moment. Every planned development district is required to demonstrate definite benefits to the community according to the ordinance. And the most significant definite benefits to Redwood are, first, preserving the 28.1 acres of open space. The second is preserving regulated wetlands and densely wooded areas. The third is installing a sidewalk network that will allow pedestrian access throughout the development, including between residential areas, commercial uses, and the Lower Rouge Trail, which is in the northwest part of the site, and also paving of Morton Taylor Road adjacent to the site. The comprehensive plan classifies the area as mixed use, and according to the comprehensive plan, the current zoning districts of C3 and R6 are recommended on the north side of Michigan Avenue in this area of the township, provided that the R6 zoned area is not exclusive and is part of a mixed use development. So that's why having the sidewalk connections between the residential portion and the commercial portion is so important. For the land uses, there's also a conditional zoning agreement. Before the plan development application was submitted for the preliminary plan development back in 2020, there was a conditional rezoning agreement that conditionally rezoned the property to allow for the proposed project to take place. And what it did was it restricted some of the uses and it narrowed down those types of R6 uses and C3 uses that could be allowed in this project. The schedule of modifications that is proposed on the PD plan includes lower minimum side-to-side separation of 20 feet instead of 30 feet required, a lower minimum rear-to-rear separation between residential buildings. 50 feet is proposed and 80 feet is required. There's a lower minimum side-to-rear separation between residential buildings. The minimum is 50 feet where 60 feet is required. And there is minimum side to rear building spacing. Looks like I accidentally had something left over from another report when I was working on something, so we'll ignore that last modification. It was applicable to another project. So it was those three major ones, the side to side, the rear to rear, and the side to rear. For the other modifications, for the sidewalks, there's a modification there because there are attached garages. There is a requirement for an internal pedestrian path in lieu of sidewalks. And the applicant has chosen instead to have the sidewalks along the street at the recommendation of staff. So the modification is to not have the internal pedestrian system because there's a sidewalk system. The next modification is for wetland setbacks to allow for grading utilities and construction of residential buildings within the required setbacks as shown on the plan, as well as for the watercourse setback to allow grading within the required 75-foot setback from the Rouge River top of bank, and to allow grading and utilities within the setback of the bank of other watercourses. Based on the conditional rezoning agreement that had allowed for I believe 250 units, and there's fewer units here on the PD plan, and they're spaced tighter. The units are spaced tighter, and some of these as a result will be in some of the natural feature setbacks. So they are requesting a modification as a result. And the final requested modification in the PD agreement is to install the required 30-foot landscape buffer that's required, but to locate it partially on the residential portion of the development instead of the 30-foot buffer being entirely on the commercial portion of the development. And given the mixed use nature of the development as well as the configuration, we recommend approval of that modification. The next part that I want to touch on is at the bottom of page 4 of our review that deals with the architecture of the buildings. For the residential units, the sheets show compliance with the requirements of the ordinance that require 50% masonry on residential buildings, which includes stone and brick. The color images of the residential units are illustrative only at this point and would have to be updated to include the required masonry at the time of site plan review. Some of the models don't have the required 4-foot rear elevation offset required by the zoning ordinance. That's a section of the ordinance that requires a rear horizontal offset on a building so that there's not a long wall along the rear portion. In most cases, it's fairly simple for residential units to include that 4-foot rear elevation offset. In the case of the Redwood models, some of these are a little bit difficult given the proximity to the natural features behind them and the tight spacing between the rears of buildings that face rear to rear, as well as the rears of buildings that face to a natural feature or more importantly, a wetland. Therefore, we recommend that there be a modification to the 4-foot rear elevation offset as stated in the plans. And the same models were proposed at preliminary PD. The 4-foot rear elevation offset was just something that wasn't brought up during the preliminary PD. At the July 13th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary PD subject to the addition of dormers, trim details, and garage door variety to add street interest in the architecture. Some of the models include these details and some models don't. Sheet C100 shows the unit placement of the models, which is intended to reduce the monotony throughout the development by different model placements throughout the development. And also the Haydenwood model, which are the units with the rears that face Morton Taylor Road and the commercial areas. These Haydenwood models have improved rear elevations that include reverse gables, doors, porches, and railings to dress up those elevations where they're the most visible. The applicant is prepared to speak on these as well based on any discussion that comes from the Planning Commission. The future commercial users are unknown at this time, so there are no architectural elevations for the commercial buildings, but these will be something that would be required to comply with the architectural standards of the zoning ordinance at the time of site plan review. That includes masonry and it includes review by the Planning Commission of the architectural features. The last item that I want to mention in terms of the plan design is the parking. There is sufficient parking on the residential portion of the site for not only the residents of Redwood, but also visitors, and there is some off-street parking as well. The commercial parking is illustrated to meet the minimum parking standards of the zoning ordinance. Because the specific commercial land uses are unknown at this time, the parking ratios for the commercial uses can be determined at the time of site plan approval. But there is plenty of space in that commercial area to fit parking, or if we're surplus of parking, there could be either maybe additional building area if it's within the PD limits, or additional green space. And then we recently recommended to the applicant to consider removing the commercial parking row on the east side of the easternmost drive in the commercial area, because this could be heavily traveled and difficult to use as a parking aisle. And it would make the easternmost drive look similar in appearance to the westernmost drive. The applicant replied to this request that the parking will be adjusted as part of the future submittal regarding the commercial development. And the applicant has included a sketch showing how compliance with that can be achieved. So with that, our recommendation is that if the architectural elevations of the residential buildings are acceptable, or if there are adequate conditions prior to the township board action, then we recommend approval of the final plan development district as provided in the PD agreement and the plan documents, including a modification to the 4-foot rear elevation offsets, subject to the applicant satisfying the requirements of Wayne County and MDOT, addressing any remaining requirements of the township attorney in the PD agreement, removing the commercial parking row on the east side of the easternmost drive in the commercial area, and adding outdoor seating around the pond near the commercial areas. That concludes our staff report, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay, so with that, this also is a public hearing, so we do need to open a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move to open the public hearing.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Weber and support by, I believe it was Commissioner Okan.
And
Commissioner Okan.
Commissioner Singh has arrived.
Oh, hello. How are you doing?
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on opening the public hearing, please?
Sure, Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Artaria,
Yes.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Okan, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes, and so the public hearing is open at 7:50. Patrick, is there a project representative available?
Yes, there are at least a couple of project representatives. And let me see if I can find this here. All right, we have Mr. John Gaber. John, you're able to talk if you want to unmute yourself.
Welcome, Mr. Gaber.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Planning Commissioners. Good evening. My name is John Gaber. I'm an attorney, and I actually represent Marketplace, the commercial side of this project. We want to thank you for looking at this again and giving us the opportunity to be in this position. Patrick has done a lot of work on this project with us, and we certainly appreciate, his cooperation as well. In terms of the substance, he basically summarized where we are. The only real issue that on the commercial side that we had to deal with and accommodated was the access management standards. And we submitted, one thing that was not in your packet of materials was a memorandum that our traffic engineer submitted last May to address this particular issue and explain why, with the reduction in the 2 curb cuts, that we can meet the driveway separation and the access management standards of MDOT. And so that was what we submitted to show that. And to reduce these curb cuts, that we believe the 3 that are there are essential for a couple of reasons. 2 of them, the one on the far right and the one on the far left, east and west, they also serve the residential community as well as the commercial community. So they play double duty, and these are essential access points to the Redwood development as well. And then the second curb cut on the western side, that curb cut we believe is necessary because it's right adjacent to a portion of our parcel that is somewhat landlocked otherwise. And it makes sense to have the curb cut there. And as you see too, that's right next to a residual parcel that is not owned by us, that's owned by a different property owner, that's residential now, but chances are that in the future that will be revised. And we would certainly entertain a cross-access shared driveway with that parcel so that they can utilize that same driveway and minimize additional curb cuts to Michigan Avenue. So I wanted to share that information with you, and we're here to answer any questions. I believe Kelly McIver is here representing Redwood, and she can address many of the questions that you may have relative to the Redwood. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here and, working with us on your project. Patrick, are there any other, hands raised other than the project sponsors for this project?
I don't see any hands raised in the audience.
All right, and I will entertain the motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Support.
Do we need to
got
hear
a
from the other, do we need to hear from the other project sponsor that's representing the residential portion of this, Mr. Chairman?
We can hear them. We can, even with the public hearing closed, we can still talk to them.
Fair enough.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor to close the public hearing by Commissioner Engel and support by Commissioner Okan. Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on that, please?
Sure, Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Acharya,
Yes.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Okan, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes, and the public hearing is closed at 7:54. Okay, so yes, now I'm assuming that there will be some questions and concerns by the commission. So I'm going to start with Commissioner Engel and ask if there's anything you want to talk about.
I just got one kind of unrelated issue or question on Patrick at 3650 Morton Taylor. It says it's zone 01. And it's not part of the project, but it's kind of surrounded by it. It says existing utilities to be abandoned, remove existing structures to be removed. Is that part of this project or is that just on the plan for future? It's on page 37 of 266. It's owned by another property owner, 3650 Morton Taylor.
That is part of that's part of the project.
Okay, so the project sponsors are going to be removing the structures and the utilities?
They have they show them as being removed. One of those parcels is part of the development, and looks like the home itself is not part of the development. So I would defer to the applicant on that in terms of what the arrangement is for those types of removals.
So part of that 3650 Morton Taylor, part of it is not in the project, correct?
Correct.
And that's just going to be existing land right there, and it doesn't appear to be any structures. I'm sorry, go ahead.
There are structures on 3650.
And utilities, and they're going to be removed by the sponsor?
It shows that on the plan here. That would have to be with the permission of the property owner there.
Okay.
That's it, Commissioner Engel?
Yep, that's all I got. Thank you,
All
Mark.
right. Okay, Commissioner Weber.
So in general, I don't have a problem, but I guess my biggest question is about water. And maybe you've answered this in your report and I've not read it, Patrick. With all these wetlands around in the proximity of the river, and the drain and all that stuff. And given what we've experienced this summer with all the wetness and rain and such, what are the concerns about potential flooding down here? I mean, I understand wetlands are left in place to alleviate that and stuff, but we're basically building around all these wetlands and such. And as you know, we had a ton of rain this year, and we just had this discussion about all the surfaces in the township and how that all contributes to the flooding problem, not just here in Canton, but downriver as well. I'm just wondering if, I mean, is anyone concerned about that, or am I worrying about nothing?
It's definitely a concern. I don't know if the engineers have reviewed it in any great detail because they have a site plan filed, but they haven't been proceeding through the site plan process at the same rate as they have with the final PD process. There are the wetlands around there, and there are a lot of stormwater ponds that are proposed too. And to get approval of this, the stormwater is under the jurisdiction of Wayne County and under the Wayne County Stormwater Ordinance. So the applicants would have to design their stormwater system to perform to that ordinance standard. They would also have to fulfill the requirements of Eagle with the wetlands.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the project per se, but I just don't want 5-10 years from now, a bunch of residents coming in complaining about how their residences or their apartments, whatever, are damaged from floodwater and such. I just hope we're not contributing to a problem here.
That's another question. Is this in a flood zone? Are they required to have flood insurance? The homeowners?
I don't know if it is in a flood zone, but we have a couple of the applicants with their hands raised. They can probably answer these. We have Paul Furtaw and we have Kelly MacGyver. I'll allow both Paul and Kelly to speak, and they can probably address some of these questions.
Excellent. Welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be presenting the project to you, particularly with the staff recommendation. It's been a long journey. Really, I echo John when he says we really appreciate the staff's guidance on this and the time. So most of the project is not in a flood zone. The only part that I'm going to let Paul speak to is the part of the McHistory drain running through the site. If any part of a building touches the flood zone, we don't build a building there because the flood insurance, as Commissioner Engel alluded to, is extremely high. Redwood would carry any insurance. Our residents can carry personal property insurance, but Redwood would carry the insurance on the buildings themselves. Storm is really important to us to manage property properly. You know, we own our neighborhoods in perpetuity. We don't build and flip them. We stay and manage them. So it's really important to us that we have a sound site development practices, and we build in a way that can protect our assets as well as those of our neighbors. Paul Furtaw is our engineer, and he's worked really hard on this issue, as well as every technical issue regarding the project. So I'm going to let him talk a little bit more directly on some of the technical aspects of maintaining the storm and the wetlands that both the commissioners have asked about so far.
Thank you.
Kelly summarized it pretty well. The floodplain is restricted to along the McHistory drain itself. So there are no buildings, and the stormwater ponds are outside. The only piece of infrastructure that is inside that is the culvert crossing that we're going to put in, and that the top of the culvert will be above the floodplain. And Patrick was correct in that the county has not had an opportunity to look at these revised plans. They did look at the previous set, and they did conditionally approve it with a couple of conditions. I can tell you that the stormwater infrastructure has been designed to accommodate the 100-year event and has been designed per the county requirements.
Okay. Does that answer your questions, Commissioner Weber and Commissioner Engel? Are you?
Yes.
I guess, yeah. I guess at the end of the day, they're the ones that are gonna be liable for any flooding or whatever the case may be, but it just, I can't think of, I'm not prepared to say I'm denying it based on this, so I mean, I like the project itself.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be, Redwood's gonna own all these units, right? These are just for rent units, right? There's no home ownership in any of these?
Well, yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, but I mean, residents can still come and complain to the township about the flooding and that we didn't do our job or the county didn't do their job in making sure that the flood water was managed properly. And I know I'm probably maybe I'm being overly critical. I don't know. I just see a lot. I see a lot of water on this drawing. And it just concerns me. That's all.
One question for the applicants is, will the residential units have basements?
No, everything's built on slab, single story living.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm good. Thank you.
Commissioner Eggenberger, any comments, concerns, anything?
Yeah, I had some similar water questions, although I guess when I was looking at the schedule of regulations and modifications, Patrick, I just had some questions, like, seems like the one where it's supposed to be minimum rear to rear separation should be 80 feet and they're going with 50. I mean, each one of these is shorter and tighter. And I'm just wondering, what's the purpose for the regulation if we're kind of like, oh yeah, no, let's just squeeze them all together. And then the other part where I was concerned about the water was with the wetland setbacks and the water course setbacks. It's looking like we're allowing them to do some sort of grading and something within close to the wetlands, which I don't know what that's going to do to it, but just wondering, why are we saying, oh, sure, that's fine?
Yeah, the wetland and the water course setbacks, we have a requirement that there can't be any grading, utilities, or structures within 25 feet of the boundary of a wetland or the boundary of a water course, whether that's the top of bank or an easement of a water course. And it's 25 feet for wetlands and water courses. The only exception is that the Rouge River, that increases to 75 feet. And the purpose for that is to protect the water course and to try to the extent possible to get any kind of development activity to take place outside of those setback areas. And as a zoning requirement, those setbacks are treated just like any other setback for a structure, where if somebody wanted relief from the requirement, they would either have to go to the zoning board of appeals, or if they're a planned development, they would have to come for a modification to allow for grading or utilities or structures within that wetland setback. Oftentimes for large projects, and I'm trying to think of the last large project with a large amount of site work where someone didn't seek a modification or seek a variance for some kind of a setback just because of the amount of wetlands and water courses that we have here in the township. With the rear to rear separation going from 80 feet down to 50 feet, I definitely see the concern there. And the reason that we have that 80 feet is that if someone is doing a project of attached residential buildings and they're putting these attached residential buildings throughout a site, we want those to be spaced out for light, for air, for allowable landscaping and things of that nature, just so that it doesn't seem so dense. What's unique about this project is that for them to, if they were to meet the 80 feet, they would actually have to fill in more wetlands and expand the scope of their Eagle permit to push those buildings out. And so as we were working with the applicants to try to get the number of units that were approved at the preliminary PD, keep it within the number that was prescribed in the conditional rezoning agreement, the separation distance from our standpoint came less important than having sidewalks on both sides of the street and trying to preserve as many natural features as possible within the perimeter of the site. And as a result of that, those buildings got pushed closer and closer together. So that's some of the background in terms of why that rear to rear separation was reduced in the way that it was.
And you're saying that because it's such a big project, that's that typically that's what we do is let them get within the 25 feet while building?
It's definitely a case-by-case basis. Many times during the development review process, we've prevented a lot of encroachments. A lot of times at the planning commission meetings and the board meetings, we've been able to prevent encroachments. And if necessary, we've tried to minimize those encroachments as well. Given the number of wetlands on the site and the way that the wetlands are laid out on the site, they've tried to minimize the impact within those wetland setback areas, but they have one of their sheets that narrows down the encroachment areas in terms of the modifications where they do have them, although they've tried to push the units closer together in order to stay outside those setbacks, but they haven't been outside all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the drawing that's within the traffic impact study, Patrick, and to Nancy's point, I mean, there's some of these units that look like they're almost right on top of these wetlands. Again, it gets back to my concern about flooding and such, but you know, my experience even before I was on the planning commission was that these wetland setbacks are there for a reason, and I don't know, it just seems like we're completely disregarding them here.
On the traffic impact study, this was the study that was I can bring up the study on the screen here. Let me see if I can bring this up. Okay, so this is the traffic impact study that was submitted at preliminary plan development review, and they layout at preliminary plan development review. It's a little bit different than the layout that we see this evening, and the number of units is the same, so the traffic impact data, the findings are going to be mostly the same. In one of the areas where they were occupying a large footprint on the site, and one area in specifically was just west of Morton Taylor at the preliminary PD review. This is a heavily wooded wetland area that on the PD plan they were proposing to fill in and have a road go right through that. And so this area right off of Morton Taylor Road at preliminary PD, this was approved for filling and clearing. And
so this drawing that you're showing us right now, that's the current one?
No.
That was the preliminary PD one that was previously
okay
approved.
So the one that you get, this one, the one you've got up right now is the one I'm looking at right now.
Correct. So this one that's up right now is this is the final PD plan. And this area west of Morton Taylor, rather than build out in this area in the wooded wetland and build the road out to Morton Taylor, the applicants have decided not to build in this area, and they've preserved this. As a result, they do have some wetland encroachments from the wetland there that is preserved. So definitely the wetland encroachments, definitely the modification request, but a benefit in the sense that they're not proposing to develop and fill those areas as they had shown on the preliminary PD plan.
So Patrick, those red lines that are there, is that where we're supposed to stay out of? That's the 80 feet?
The red line is the 25-foot setback from the wetland boundary.
Okay. Where does the 80 feet come into?
The 80 feet is a rear to rear setback. So if we go from the rear,
between the blues,
see if I can zoom in here.
When you say rear to rear, you're talking about the rears of the buildings, Patrick?
Correct. The rear wall to the rear wall. So in this area here where the hand is, it might be a little hard to see, but the rear of
So where your
So-
hand is, there's those blue and green buildings. So there is 50 feet between the buildings instead of 80.
Correct.
But that has nothing to do with the wetlands. The wetlands are in the red areas, correct?
Correct.
So we're not encroaching on the wetlands, we're encroaching on the neighbors being closer to each other.
Well, there is some encroachment into the wetlands, like, right?
Yeah,
in
but
the-
I agree with that, Doug, but especially with the 80 feet I'm talking about. When
Oh,
he's-
okay, yeah, yeah.
When he's saying we're going from 80 feet to 50 feet, that's between the two neighbors.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay,
So,
that's one issue. And then encroaching on the wetlands, and I see up here where there's a couple of buildings technically inside the red line. Is that what they're asking remuneration from?
correct. They're asking to be within that wetland setback area. So they wouldn't be within the wetland itself. They would just be within the setback from the boundary of the wetland.
Okay, but where you're right now with your hand, those two green buildings look like a significant portion of the buildings are in the setback.
Correct.
So my question, and maybe this is dumb, but my question to the petitioner then is, do you have, to a potential tenant, do you have to disclose that those units are within a potential wetland setback area? I mean, it seems to me like the potential for flooding and damage is greater in those places than elsewhere.
That's not something that's not like a disclosable condition. It's not, being in a wetland setback area is not the same thing as being in, say, a flood zone or even necessarily an area that has a propensity to flood. It can be a couple different things. Is there a certain amount of plant species there? Is there a certain type of soil there? And how can we deal with that soil to make sure that building is safe? And again, from a business perspective, it's not only about long-term asset management, so making sure that we're building things in a sustainable way, but also with the rents that we charge and the way we like our residents to stay, we have to give them a place to stay that's safe and hail for their belongings. This actual building here, our ops team would actually probably look at that as a premium unit because you have the proximity to the wetlands there. That's not why we built it there, to get a premium. The plan that Patrick showed you before was the plan that we were approved for at preliminary. So according to the code, we could come in with that, and as long as our final plan is substantially similar, it should be a pretty easy decision to say yes to it because we were approved at preliminary. But after that, some priorities at the township had changed, and they really wanted us to focus on what can you do with the wetlands and what can you do with connectivity. And to be responsive to that, we increased our sidewalks to two sides of the road, which results in some of the setbacks together. And regarding the wetlands, we decreased the wetlands that we were impacting or removing from almost 3.5 to just over 1/2 acre. So we are in some setbacks, but what you're looking at here is almost an 80% reduction in the number of wetlands impacted. So it really is, those setbacks pushed together are really a function of, I wouldn't go so far as to say conservation development, because it's not certainly conservation planning in its strictly scholastic sense, but it is like that closer setbacks. You push the buildings a little closer together so you can have this beautiful green space and preservation over on the other side of the neighborhood. And that, I know the commissioner asked the question, well, why do we even have these rules if we're not going to look at them? But the Canton Code also provides for the PD arrangement, right? Which is, can you do some innovative things with your development? Can you answer some of the township's concerns like walkability, connectivity, and wetland preservation? And in exchange, there'll be like a little flexibility. So that flexibility is also built into the code there.
If I can add something, the innovation is great until there's a disaster. And then all of a sudden the innovation is not important anymore. I see, we've got 5 units that are definitely within these setbacks. Is there an issue with, I know it's money, but with not having those 5 units?
So we looked at that. The other thing that you're looking at there is not just those 5 homes there, it's the connection point to the south. So with that, by continuing that road through there and putting those units on there, we have that road is also in the setback, that private drive. And that's required for access because there are over 100 homes on that side. We have to have 2 points of access. So
Which
we're already
private drive?
looking at the drive coming in. If you come in off of Morton Taylor, the first entrance on the west side, and then you
Right.
carry that over and go north.
Right, okay.
Go North Patrick right there. So you can see that portion of the road there keeps it from being a dead end and gives us our second point of access into the neighborhood, which is required for fire code. So we would be impacting the setback at that point as well.
But having a road in that setback is a lot different than having a residence within that setback. I don't get the comparison.
But it's if we're gonna build a road, it's helpful to have the homes on it, particularly with the additional costs involved with doing the sidewalk on both sides of the road and some of those other ways that we were able to accommodate the township's
So
concerns.
the short answer is you don't want to eliminate those 5 homes.
Well, that's right. That's right.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay, so.
This is Harpreet. We are talking
yes, go
about
ahead.
floods and concerns about floods. I mean, these properties do not have basements. They're built on slab. Do we have any kind of a study where we have floods in this area coming from the front door, or any recent studies? I mean, I don't remember. We hardly have any issues in Canton area where water is coming through the front door. I mean, we have issues where basements are being flooded, and a lot of those, but not if the house is built on slab.
Well, this is the first time that we're having residential in this area, which could be a matter of the elevation and proximity to the watershed
Yeah, that's
situation over there.
We have any kind of a flood study in this area which tells us that if we have any recent floods, or I mean, if there is a concern, is there any kind of a study done for that?
I'm not aware of any studies in this area.
How wet did this area get during the summer when we had the heavy rains over the summer, Patrick? I mean, did anyone look at that, or?
This area, I'm not sure how wet it got when we had those heavy rains.
I mean, how far back is the river from here?
So I can scroll. So on the north, if we're on the east side of Morton Taylor Road, north of the boundary is the Lower Rouge.
I mean, and even up here, so these red lines up here, these units up here are getting dangerously close to the wetland setback. Then is that what those lines are?
These are the 75 foot distance that's required from the top of bank of the Lower Rouge. So for wetlands and other water courses, it's a 25 foot setback, but for the Lower Rouge, it's a 75 foot setback from the top of bank of the river to grading utilities or any structure. And so this southernmost red line is the boundary of that 75 foot distance. So for most of it, it's preserved and untouched, but in some of it, there is grading utilities, and looks maybe like part of a porch here.
So Patrick, the area between those 2 red lines, is that the backyards?
So that's that area between the red lines, that's just the 75 foot setback distance. So that just represents the setback area.
But would that be considered their backyard?
But that would essentially be their backyard, yes.
Okay. But
yeah,
it's still 75 feet. You still meet the requirements, even though it's in a backyard. Correct? And it would be graded to the river, not toward the units.
Yeah.
Yes,
It
I'm
would-
in. being
Oh, go ahead.
graded.
Yeah, I'm assuming a downward slope away from the homes.
Right, and that's,
Yeah.
so that's why we're really still at the 75 foot and they're within that boundary, so I guess I'm okay with the far northern part of that.
Yeah, right. The elevations of those buildings are quite a bit higher than the top of bank.
Okay,
Uh,
Okay, let's move on. Commissioner Okan, any concerns or comments?
Just a couple of just real quick questions. Is there any clubhouses or anything for any of the residential units?
No, we don't build clubhouses. I know our leasing office will have a pet wash station in it, and then we have the sidewalk connections, and there's some benches placed along some of the various pond areas for some reflection areas.
Is there any parks at all in this development?
We've got some like little pocket parks will show up in the landscape plan, sort of around the detention pond and those sorts of
Can you
areas.
show me that, Patrick? I must have missed it on the landscaping plan.
So they're going to be benches along the storm pond. And
No,
there's
I'm
a
not talking
trail
about benches. I'm talking about like a park with playground, people can
No.
gather, structure.
No, not like that. No.
Is there any
no.
reason why we don't?
Yeah. Most of our residents are empty nesters. Average age is 51, and most of them come from within a 3-mile radius of the neighborhood. So they are generally already in the Life Fitness Center, the Club Pilates, the bar yoga, those sorts of places. And whenever you build a clubhouse or an amenity like that, it gets built into the rent. And we always talk
I
about
just
how
think we're
empty
missing a big opportunity here. We have all these natural resources and stuff. I just think we're missing a big opportunity to be able to showcase some of that. I don't know. I guess I see people being a little bit more active. I like it as more of a place for people to gather and really bring the community together. I don't think, Patrick, there really is a park nearby there, but maybe I'm wrong. It'd be nice to have something like that, at least a little park. Clubhouse is one thing, but at least a little area that by the one of the rivers or one of the natural resources, at least to be able to have a place that people can gather.
I think Commissioner Okan, the feature that, well, actually, you could consider the fact that that is right there at the trailhead. That's kind of like Canton's, one of Canton's premier features recreationally. The fact that you have to go up Morton Taylor to the trailhead, and many of the people that would be living here would do that same thing. So I think you're going to satisfy a lot of the recreational juices and urges just because of where it's located and the fact that they've observed, and I'm really appreciative of this, a lot more of the open area than was required by ordinance, and preserving natural features and stuff like this. I'm not as concerned about there not being an actual park there, although who knows, maybe in the future that could still happen.
That's all I got. Thank you.
That's it. Commissioner Acharya.
Yeah. Overall, I have many concerns about the project, and I really don't know whether the PDD demonstrates the benefits to the community, because I think the entire project is too tight. We're trying to do too much, too many houses, too many residential homes clubbed together, and encroachment of wetlands, and the rear to rear, the separation has been reduced, and I'm not really happy with the project. And I think given the situation we've had with flooding, the stormwater infrastructure is going to be under a lot of stress. So it's not a matter of checking boxes, but given the scale of the project, I really am concerned and apprehensive. That's my response.
Okay, Commissioner Singh, did you have any additional comments?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay. I have several concerns. The water issue is one. For one thing, I do not want to have to be that place in the news that you read about down the road that had massive flooding in a residential area. I am a little bit concerned with this, but having said that, I feel like the project developers and the sponsors must have done their homework in terms of elevations and grading and what they could do in these areas, and the fact that they will have sufficient insurance in order to mitigate the damages that would come in these areas. I'm a little apprehensive of the fact that they're not willing to sacrifice 5 of 235 units, to get out of the immediate setback situation. However, knowing that if you're going to have flooding, it's probably not going to stop at that red line anyway. It's going to go a lot farther than that if you had it at all. I am concerned also with traffic flow on the property, and maybe somebody could answer this. I was looking at the ingress and egress, if you will, of the residential area on the west side going around the commercial area. You got the drive coming in off of Michigan Avenue. But on the east side, where you have the residential there, you proposed a temporary little cul-de-sac. And I'm wondering why that's not connected to the other end of the commercial area with that drive down to Michigan Avenue. Can someone answer that for me? It's a temporary, there's a temporary area there.
Yeah, there's a temporary turnaround there. So there are over 100 homes on the easterly side of the neighborhood, as well as the westerly side. And so per fire code, we have to have 2 points of access. So since we're developing Morton Taylor Road up to the north, all the way up to the north, with sidewalks running all the way up to the north with that phase 2, which phase 2 is the easterly side, those 2 access points off of Morton Taylor will give us our required access. So we're not going to add the we're not going to add the curb cut to Michigan Avenue with the residential portion. That will be something that Marketplace does once it has a user for that commercial side. And that temporary turnaround is just to provide a place where a fire can turn around until that connection is made when Marketplace has a user.
Why wouldn't you connect it immediately? Why wouldn't you connect it in the original design? For
Just
flow?
because we already had 2 points of access off of Morton Taylor.
And you don't think that more is better in terms of options?
We were really focused on Morton Taylor, and to be frank, it wasn't a concern that was brought up at preliminary. Again, those 2 access points are historically part of the approved preliminary plan, so it wasn't changed for final. We can certainly take a look at it. It's just wasn't historically a concern for the township or for us.
I see, and I just would think that since you have that kind of access on the west side, why not have the similar access on the east side? Even though you're not required, you're meeting the other requirements. You might consider this as an option that's might even be better for people, particularly the ones that live in those units down there. Maybe having a couple of ways to get out would be a good thing. That's one concern that I have. The other concern that I have is Morton Taylor itself. Morton Taylor itself. Now, the way I read the drawing there, Morton Taylor is going to be widened by 10 feet. Is that right, Patrick? It looks like the right of way is going to be 10 feet wider.
Yeah, existing right of way is 33. I think that's going to be widened to 60 feet on each side.
Okay.
So that'll be a 120 right of way.
Okay,
I think it's 86. I take that back. It's an 86-foot right of way proposed.
Okay. My concern is the 2 immediate accesses off of Morton Taylor, right when you turn from Michigan Avenue and going north. It seems to me that, ultimately, maybe not immediately because you're not going to have the commercial probably immediately, but ultimately you could have quite a bottleneck there with the two driveways. Was that a concern at all by the project sponsors?
No, our traffic, we have to do a write-in, I think a write-in up for Morton Taylor. But other than that, our traffic is not going to be substantial enough to cause a big stack at that Morton Taylor, Michigan intersection there. When the commercial comes, we'll bring some of the residential density, but the real traffic impacts will happen once the commercial users are fully in there.
Okay. The other, one thing I wanted to ask you too. Okay, so you mentioned, or someone mentioned that because you're building around the one residential area, this is quite unique to us. Usually when this happens, it's residential building around residential, which is not a big deal. But now we've got commercial building around residential, and you're aware that that kind of messes with the flow of that, should that remain in that situation. So you have a contingency should that situation change in the future, correct? In terms of just having that all commercial right in there, coming before us and changing the zoning and all of that kind of thing. And I'm assuming that there's a contingency plan.
John, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, I guess I didn't quite follow the logic here or the reasoning. You're suggesting
But I'm
that there's
getting
a contingency plan that the commercial isn't built, or that the residential area is built commercial.
Yeah, that the as it's proposed right now, you'd be building commercial around a residence off of Michigan Avenue. Okay, and God bless our people who decide that they want to stay in their homes and not succumb to development. But things change and people change and circumstances change. I'm assuming there's a contingency commercial plan design in case that property ever changes over, or if you could purchase it or what have you, so that you can clean that up and make the flow of the commercial that much smoother.
Yes, exactly. That would be our preference, and we have had discussions with that property owner to do it, but the asking price is just untenable to be able to do that. But we do, we would contemplate that particular site would convert to commercial in the future, whether it becomes part of our development or whether it doesn't. And that's one of the reasons that we proposed that drive right there be a shared access to facilitate the future commercial development of that particular site.
Okay. The other concern that I have is your elevations and basically streetscape. With units like this, you can't avoid the fact that garage prominence is key. You're going to look down every street, and basically what sticks out is garage door, garage door, garage door, garage door. I know you're going to vary the building materials. You're going to do a lot of things to create variety there, but you're still going to have just average garage doors. Is there any thought to having a variety of different garage door designs? Windows, windowless, things of that nature that are going to distinguish one unit from another?
We could certainly do window versus windowless garages. I mean, that's something that we could do.
Okay, I would urge that. I just think that looking down the street and just seeing garage doors is not really an attractive view at all. But it's not something that can be helped in a design like this. The other thing I want to ask, and this is just a matter of graphics, when I'm looking at the site plan and I'm looking at each building unit, I see 4 boxes on the street side of each unit. There are 4 boxes that are there. Is that drawn that way to indicate like parking spaces, or is that the garages themselves? I don't understand those 4 boxes.
Those are the 2-car garages, and then the driveways after that.
Okay, so why 4 boxes? You're only fitting 2 cars in each.
To chalk it up to artistic license. That's we can take those off.
Okay, well, it's Yeah, it's a little bit confusing. It's almost like I don't know, a tennis court or something.
Yeah.
In appearance there. So, okay, I just needed a clarification there. I think that's pretty much all that I had. Let me see here. Yeah. I think, and I will make this comment. Having been on the planning commission when we decided to make Michigan Avenue more of a multi opportunity, if you will, situations, particularly on the north side of Michigan Avenue, where we had, primarily light industrial and a little bit of commercial. And now we're, in addition to the industrial, we've got commercial and now residential. And yours is the first residential unit that we have approved on Michigan Avenue. This is very key to Canton. And I do believe that it's going to be a very prominent piece of Canton if we approve this, because it's just going to be different on Michigan Avenue. Michigan Avenue is starting to be recognized, by a lot of different businesses. And so I think it's going to continue to grow. You mentioned that your average age was, what was it? It was in the 50s, or upper 50s or 60s?
Yes, 51.
Okay. Is there a reason why your units are not attractive to younger users? I'm thinking of young professional types.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I would say they're not attractive to younger users. I would say they're very attractive to empty nesters. And the reason I think that the reason that is because of the single story living. There's zero entry from the garage into the living room or the garage to the kitchen. It's, we're ADA compliant on the interior. So if you're looking for a place you want to stay in Canton because you've been volunteering at the library and coaching the Little League team, but your kids are gone and you're tired of paying taxes and mowing your own lawn, this is a great option. And this is the need that the void that we fill in municipalities where we go. The other 30% of our residents are young professionals. Generally, we're very popular with people with odd sleep hours, in particular because our neighborhoods are so quiet. Emergency personnel, airport personnel, where we're near airports, hospital personnel. Our rents here are going to start out at an average of $2,100 a month. So when we draw in that young professional, and as well as provide a place for empty nesters in Canton, an option for empty nesters in Canton, there are going to be some people with some buying power. And we're happy to provide a little bit of density and that buying power to this part of Michigan Avenue.
Okay. All right, that's all that I have. Any other commissioner comments?
Mr. Chairman, I got two questions.
Sure.
One for, and I'm sorry, I forgot the gentleman's name, the attorney who represents Marketplace. What is I think there's a time schedule on the plan here somewhere, but what is the time expectation or the timeline for the commercial to get built out?
Yeah, this is John Gaber. I mean, that's a great question. There is a timeline in here for 5 and 6 years to build out the PUD that's in the PD that's in the PD agreement. The difficulty, and we've talked about this to this board before and to the township board. The difficulty we encounter is it's difficult to take a bare site like this and try to market the commercial first, because you don't have the residential density behind you, number one, which creates, a customer base for the small mid commercial that we're talking about on this space. Like if somebody wants to, go to the Coney Island or get their hair cut or something like that, this residential base provides a market for that. And secondly, to be honest with you, you're really not going to get any traction on the marketing of this site until somebody sees a shovel go in the ground. And that's going to be on the residential side first. And once they see that this is actually a project, then we anticipate, generating a lot of interest at that time, and the project will move forward. So as soon as Redwood commences on it's phase 1 on the west side, we're going to be marketing this site very heavily, and we anticipate being able to successfully do so in the near term. because we need to meet those timelines that are within the PD agreement. So I wish I could be more definitive than that, but
No,
that's.
I understand your concern. On the commercial side, is there room there that you can market to Chick-fil-A? I'm joking.
But I think we need quite a bit of stacking.
That's for our chairman's benefit. I asked that question.
Okay, yes. Why don't you, please clarify, Commissioner Weber, you're half joking. I think Commissioner Higginberger has her hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I want to make sure I'm reading the traffic study correctly. Because it looked as though it sounded like there needed to be a signal added, and is that going to be done through MDOT? It said something about how, I know part of the motion is making sure you're going along with everything that MDOT suggests. And we know that things that they suggest don't always happen very quickly. And is that they'll be waiting for MDOT to put a light in, or will the developer be doing that? And am I looking at the traffic study correctly? Am I reading that correctly where it says that?
A light at Morton Taylor?
Yeah, it says, well, it's remarks on phase 2 commercial development. It says in bold letters, adding a signal at this intersection along with some geometric improvements is a long overdue need that requires immediate attention.
At which intersection?
At Morton Taylor in Michigan, right?
No, it's at,
M12.
it's.
Oh, that
it's-
one is the Gettys and Sheldon Road, but there's another one where I thought it was intersection of Morton Taylor and Michigan Avenue. So it says an additional right turn lane is needed. It says however, with all the existing development and growth rate traffic, this intersection will continue to fail along with the westbound to eastbound crossover on M12 Michigan Avenue, west of this intersection. And it's just whenever I see a lot of those Fs and bright red in those traffic studies, it makes me very nervous.
Well, to be honest, it is something that the township might want to be concerned about. I know Patrick's aware of it, and it did come up at previous planning commission meetings. That when you're looking at that study, that's the background condition, where it mentions the signal. That the existing scenario is a failing scenario, and a signal is warranted over at this intersection to help improve those. But that's the background condition. The additional traffic generated by this development doesn't make it any less of a failure. The recommendations are a right turn lane, improvements to the intersection, and that crossover that will help mitigate the additional traffic generated by this development. But again, there are some underlying concerns with traffic in this area generally.
Right. Right. So it might not make it fail more, but it certainly isn't going to help it.
No, but the elimination of the 2 curb cuts will help too, because you'll have fewer points of conflict. The traffic study was done before those 2 curb cuts were eliminated.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, and Commissioner Engel has his hand up.
Yeah, just one more question on the water. With the improvements on this site and where they're going to put the water, won't it be an improvement on the property? The way the water is being managed? I mean, I live in Glengarry Village, and Greg's right. They never should have built Glengarry Village, because half my neighbors 25 years later have water in their basements. But, I don't, did we stop building places because there might have water in the basement? Otherwise, we should have no basements in this town.
We like to think we're going to improve the situation. Right now, there is no positive outlet. Like on the west side, those are just low-lying areas.
But there's going to be a stormwater detention pond, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yep. There's some.
So you're going to manage the
significant-
water better on the property once you develop it than it's being managed now.
That's the intent. I like to think that we're going to be able to do that. Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm fine with the
else?
project, Greg.
Okay,
So, Mr. Chair, my second question was going
Sure.
to be to Patrick, and it was a procedural question. Patrick, refresh my memory. This is the final approval for the PDD. Before a shovel is put in the ground, a permit is issued. They have to go through the county and Eagle on the whole water management and sort of thing, correct?
That's correct. Additionally, if final PD is approved, they will have to come back to the planning commission for site plan review. So we are not doing site plan at this point where we look at landscaping, lighting,
Right.
and a little bit more engineering than we typically see.
So will we or the board, the township board, see this again after Eagle or the county has approved the handling of the water and such?
Sometimes in a case, unless it's a site condo, we typically don't have the Eagle permits and the county stormwater permit before site plan approval. But what we do have at site plan during site plan review is many times they're engineering the site so that should they get site plan review, they'll have enough engineering on their plan from a preliminary standpoint for feasibility to have our engineers look at it. And then ultimately, if they get site plan approval, they go in for their final engineering. So when we get to site plan review, the plan looks much more final and there's more engineering because they've started some preliminary engineering on that in anticipation of final engineering review as well as Eagle and county review.
I don't have the model motion right in front of me, but is one of the conditions to getting the appropriate permits from Wayne County and Eagle?
Sorry, the motion says satisfying the requirements of Wayne County and MDOT. And I guess we could add Eagle in there.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
If those requirements are in there, I'm okay with I'm okay with the project.
I like adding the Eagle also.
Okay.
I
Okay,
agree.
Mr. Chairman, I move to make a motion. I move to
right
recommend
ahead.
final, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I move to recommend final approval of the Redwood Marketplace Canton Plan Development District on tax parcels as noted, as provided in the plan development agreement and plan documents, including a modification to the 4-foot rear elevation offset requirement for the Meadowbrook Forest Wood models, subject to the applicant satisfying the requirements of Wayne County, MDOT, and Eagle, addressing any remaining requirements of the township attorney in the PD agreement, removing the commercial parking row on the east side of the easternmost drive of the commercial area, and adding outdoor seating around the pond near the commercial area.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Engel and support by Commissioner Weber. Any further discussion on the motion? Any additions or anything? Hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on this motion?
Sure. Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Engenhauser,
I think that's me. Um,
Whoa.
Chickenberg, I'm sorry.
Okay, yes.
It's been a late night already.
Must be after
Commissioner Weber.
8:30.
Did you say Commissioner Weber?
I did.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Artaria,
No.
Commissioner Okan, yes, and Commissioner Green.
Yes. The motion carries. So Patrick, back to I believe it was Commissioner Weber's question. So there's some things that have to happen before this comes back to us for site plan, correct?
That's correct.
Some more action. So we're going to see this again. Okay. But right now, this PDD still has to go to the township board in the frame that we are seeing it right now.
That's correct.
With our recommendation of approval. Okay, with that motion. Okay. All right. Well, good luck to the project sponsors, and we will see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for being with us. Yep.
Bye.
All right. Our third item on the agenda tonight is Monarch Grove. What this is, we're considering a site plan approval for property located on the south side of Ford Road between Beck Road and Canton Center. Could you give us more detail, Patrick?
Yes, thank you. The applicant proposes to construct a housing for the elderly use at the southwest corner of Ford Road and Gorman Road, and that's located between Beck and Canton Center. The proposed housing for the elderly use consists of 225 units on 17.25 acres, which proposes a mix of independent living, assisted living, memory care, and some attached elderly cottages. The Township Board of Trustees approved the final plan development district for the site on August 24th of this year. And prior to the Township Board approval, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and recommended approval of the final PD at its August 2nd, 2021 meeting. So the applicant now comes before the Planning Commission for site plan review, which is the next step in the process and the final administrative review process with the Planning Commission. This project is a plan development, and its definite benefits included the following. First, the architectural designs of the buildings, and they include 50% masonry. The second benefit was the paving of Gorman Road to the site's entrance, including reconstruction of the approach to 3 lanes going northbound and exiting onto Ford Road. One of those lanes is a dedicated left turn lane left going westbound on Ford Road. The third benefit is extending the sidewalk along the south side of Ford Road, eastward about 620 feet to connect to the existing sidewalk in front of Bell Tire. And this proposed sidewalk is illustrated on the plans this evening. The fourth benefit is adding northbound and southbound right turn lights at the intersection of Canton Center Road and Ford Road to permit overlap phases for northbound and southbound right turns. And that's something that the applicants are working with MDOT on, in addition to the sidewalk. The fifth benefit is maintaining over 25% of the site as open space. And finally, including some outdoor recreation areas for residents of the development that include pickleball and hockey. The layout of the plan is much the same as it was at final PD review. So in terms of the land use, the schedule of regulations and modifications, all of that is basically the same. At this point, what we're doing is we're getting more into the details of the site plan itself. And some of the things regarding the site plan itself is there's pedestrian access throughout the site. There's sidewalks on both sides of the site, as well as the sidewalk that we previously mentioned east of the site along the south side of Ford Road. That's in front of the Bell Tire. So with that sidewalk on the south side of Ford Road, somebody could walk from Monarch Grove to, say, the Kroger or the shopping center there, where there's some existing sidewalks to tie into. For the architecture of the buildings, you may recall at final PD review, there was a proposal for less than 50% brick, and there were a couple of options presented. The Planning Commission opted for the option with at least 50% brick, and the board agreed with that. So that's part of the approved plan development, is to have at least 50% brick, and the elevation plans submitted reflect that. And they show that 50% brick, not just for the main building, but also the attached cottages. For the landscaping, we have several landscaping comments, most of which are just citing the applicable landscape standards of the zoning ordinance. And we've been in the process of verifying counts. And sometimes that process is an ongoing process, especially as things get modified throughout the site. But basically, we're in agreement in terms of the applicable standards, and the landscape designs and plans submitted are very close to the standards. We've communicated some of the standards to the applicant since our last review, and we're working on those. So sometimes some of those tweaks take place after a formal site plan review, but the landscape plan has the vast majority of plant material there. Sometimes there's just discrepancies between counts and occasionally between standards, but I think we're in agreement on the standards. The applicable landscape requirements are for frontage landscaping, the parking lot landscaping, building foundation landscaping, detention pond landscaping, and general site landscaping. There's a requirement in the ordinance that housing for the elderly uses must meet the multifamily district standards. And this can be a very difficult standard to attain for a housing for the elderly because a lot of times it's not laid out like a multifamily development. Multifamily development requires trees and shrubs on a per unit basis, which for a multifamily site, you have space to work with that, but sometimes on a housing for the elderly site, you don't always have the space there because it's laid out differently. And so rather than landscape the site on a per unit basis, we recommend landscaping it based on having the standard for building foundation landscaping and also general site landscaping. And those combinations of, in lieu of the general multifamily standard using building foundation and general site, that's a standard that's been applied on some other housing for the elderly uses when we've looked back at previous plans to see how we've applied that standard. So we would be consistent in using the foundation and the general site landscaping in lieu of this multifamily standard that's there. So we recommend a modification to modify those standards accordingly. And so again, the standards would apply to the frontage landscaping, which would be alongside both Ford Road and Gorman Road. There would be parking lot landscaping, just like any other parking lot would be required to be landscaped in a similar facility. And then the foundation landscaping and the general site landscaping would allow for landscaping not just adjacent to the buildings, but also the general site landscaping throughout the entire site. And then finally, the detention pond landscaping, especially because these ponds are heavily visible, there will be trees and shrubs required around the ponds to dress up those and much nicer than those that are not as visible. The next item is parking. The proposed parking lot includes 43 more spaces than the minimum number required by the ordinance, but 40 of those spaces are labeled as land bank parking. At the previous PD reviews, we recommended that the PD agreement and site plan state that those land bank parking spaces will not be permitted without explicit approval from the Planning Commission at site plan approval. Those are still shown as land bank parking spaces, so there's no proposal to pave those at this time. The cottage buildings include attached two-car garages for each unit, and there's also parking allowed in the driveways. There's a 30-foot wide internal road that is wide enough to allow for on-street parking wherever it would be permitted, unless there's a fire lane where it's otherwise prohibited. We have some comments on the lighting, but nothing too major. Some of the light fixtures we recommend lowering and having in some different places, but that's something that we continue to work with the applicants on. The main focus of that is in section 2.13 of the zoning ordinance. The major standard we have to meet is that there's the minimum or the maximum illumination at the lot lines. The site is designed to meet those illumination standards so that it won't impact the adjacent neighbors. The last items are there's a dumpster enclosure designed to comply with the ordinance, and the signage, although it's administratively approved by the building division, we just have one minor note on the sign itself where the masonry base has to be slightly increased, but that's something that would definitely be caught by the building division when it reviews the signs, but something we nonetheless want to note at the time of site plan review. So the site plan is designed to be consistent with the final PD plan, and our recommendation is approval, subject to the requirements of the final PD district approval and all state, county, and municipal requirements, including the necessary revisions noted in our staff report for landscaping, lighting, and signage, and that the permitting and construction of the off-site sidewalk along Ford Road be done to the satisfaction of MDOT and Canton Township Engineering Services Division. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Let's just go right to the commission. Commissioner Acharya.
No concerns. I'm okay.
Commissioner Singh.
No questions at this moment. Thank you.
Oh, you know what? I'm remiss here. Is the project sponsor available?
Yeah, Mr. David Endres has his hand raised.
Yeah, let's hear from the project sponsor.
Okay, David, you're able to talk if you want to take yourself off mute. There you go.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I have several of our consultants on the line here, most notably Scott Deisler with PH7 Architects, who is our architect for the project, Paul Loosley with Environmental Engineers, who is our civil engineer, Pat Conroy with Conroy Associates, who is our landscape architect, Mike Labadie with Row Engineering, who is our traffic engineer, and one of my colleagues, Chip Hine with Kirko Development. We're very excited about this project. We've been working with you folks closely for the last couple of years to get to this point. We have worked hard on this last leg of engineering to complete the documents in compliance with all the Canton zoning ordinances, et cetera. You know, our central objective is to be an amenity to the Canton area in terms of senior living. It's an area that candidly our studies show is lacking significantly in the area. From a thematic perspective, we want this project to be basically resort-like and park-like, and we've planned the landscape site layout to kind of reflect those central design considerations. So our objective is to start this project early next year and get it rolling pending these final approvals. So if there's any questions you folks have, we're happy to answer.
All right, thank you very much for working with us tonight. I'm going to go back the way I started because I should have heard from our project sponsor first and ask if Commissioner Acharya now has any other comments.
No, at this point, I'm okay. Everything looks good.
Commissioner Singh,
And no questions.
Commissioner Okan. You're
I'm
on
good,
mute.
thank you.
Mhm. Commissioner Eggenberger,
I'm also good, thank you.
Commissioner Weber,
I have no other questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Engel.
It's a nice little project and I look forward to it. No questions. Thanks.
Okay, I too look forward to this. I think it's going to be great for Canton. You know, being on the elderly side myself, I appreciate projects that come before us like this. I have a couple of just detail types of questions, though, probably for Patrick. So as a part of this project, they're going to include sidewalks on both sides of Gorman up to the property line. And then also they're going to extend the sidewalk along Ford Road on the south side up to where the Bell Tire sidewalk is. So, you know, I've been thinking in terms of worst conditions and, you know, we're about to enter into the snow season. So I'm thinking ahead going, okay, so now who's going to take care of the snow on the sidewalk that is not on their property on the south side of Ford Road and also on the east side of Gorman? How is that going to work to the advantage of the residents there?
I believe I believe it's the same in the MDOT right of way as it is for other sidewalks in the community, where if there's a sidewalk adjacent to the property, then it's the adjacent property owner along the frontage who would be responsible for that sidewalk. So if someone, oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm saying that, so we're creating an obligation on the east side of Gorman to those property owners there which have not developed that property to take care of those sidewalks. Is that what you're saying?
By ordinance they would. So if there was something like a sidewalk repair and we have a sidewalk repair program throughout the township. It's generally the adjacent property owner that's responsible for that sidewalk, especially in a public road right away where there's no association. Typically, it's just the property owner. And the sidewalks are within the public road right away. So if someone, for example, lives on a public road, they don't have a sidewalk in front of their house, and the county or the township comes in and builds a sidewalk in front of their house within the public right of way. That's something that the county, the township, or the state can do within that right of way. And then it does create amenity, but also an obligation for the adjacent property owner.
Well, who's gonna shovel that snow? The property owner? They don't have anything else going on there. They're gonna just maintain the snow shoveling through the winter after that sidewalk is built?
I would just defer to the township ordinances that require that the sidewalks be maintained by the adjacent owner.
Okay, all right, as long as we understand this, I'm excited that there is gonna be sidewalk. I'm also fearful because we're dealing with both, elderly that are, able to get around and do everything that they need to do, but we're also dealing with perhaps some memory care issues, which can be a safety issue along Ford Road as well. But I'm also considering a safety issue in terms of maintenance of the pathway itself. And we know what the winter's like in Michigan, and there's gonna be snow. So somebody's gonna have to get out there and shovel that snow.
Well,
That's all I'm saying.
why do they have to put the sidewalk in on the eastern side? I mean, why wouldn't that be the obligation of whoever ends up developing those properties over there on the eastern side of Gorman Road?
I would think it would be their obligation, but right now there's no development there.
Understood. I'm saying, why are they even have to put the road? Why are we even putting the sidewalk in on the east side of Gorman Road? Why is it the obligation of this development to put this sidewalk in on that side of Gorman?
It's something that's been proposed on the plans. I think they've illustrated that on the plan, and part of it is, I think that this part of Gorman Road, they're going to be paving. Right now it's gravel, and they're going to pave it from Ford south to just south of their proposed driveway. So along with that paving, it looks like there's some curbing there as well. So there would be quite a bit of work there. And sometimes in a major right-of-way improvement there, that's a time when the sidewalks are installed on both sides.
So that's part of the community benefit.
Yeah, it's
I
not,
think so.
it's
Building
not
up
been
in that
listed as one, but yeah, it could be looked at that way.
Okay, all right, well, we'll see how that works out. That's all I have. I like the elevations. I like, I like the way this looks in terms of the drawings, what we see there. I think it's going to be a beautiful project. Anyone else have any comments or concerns? Anything to add to this? If not, let's talk about a proposal. Anybody have anything that they want to put in the form of a proposal here?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of the Monarch Grove site plan on tax parcels numbers as listed, subject to the requirements of the final plan development district approval and all state, county, and municipal requirements, including the necessary revisions noted in this report for landscaping, lighting, and signage, and that the permitting and construction of the off-site sidewalk along Ford Road be done to the satisfaction of MDOT and the Canton Township Engineering Services Division.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Engel and support by Commissioner Weber. Any further discussions? Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on that motion, please?
Sure. Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Artaria,
Yes.
Commissioner Okan, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Patrick, what's the next step for this project?
The next step will be for the site plan to go to the township board for final action.
Okay, and so we wouldn't see it again, right? Because we just saw it for the last time.
Correct. This would not come back to the planning commission unless there was a site plan amendment that rose to the level of planning commission review.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, good luck, Mr. Andrus and your crew there. We look forward to a beautiful project.
Thank you very much.
All right. Our fourth agenda item tonight is BJ's Wholesale Club, where we're considering developer instigated revisions to the site plan, which everybody knows is the property formerly held by J.C. Penney. It's located on the south side of Ford Road between, it's located on the north side of Ford Road between Morton Taylor and Sheldon. Patrick, could you give us more detail?
Sure. And just make sure, okay. Yeah, the applicant is BJ's Wholesale Club, and they're proposing a retail superstore to reoccupy the vacated J.C. Penney building on the north side of Ford Road. The site consists of a building just under 105,000 square feet and a 415 space parking lot. And it also has an access drive from Morton Taylor Road, as well as several cross access points to adjacent sites. The site is part of the Ford Sheldon Newman PDD, which was originally approved in 2004 for the site. And the J.C. Penney site plan was approved in 2007 pursuant to that PDD agreement. And the current PDD agreement does allow for retail superstores. At its meeting on October 12th of this year, the Township Board of Trustees approved a PDD amendment that included the following terms. And these were in terms that were also recommended for approval by the Planning Commission previously. The first is that the Automobile Tire Center is proposed as an ancillary use to the retail superstore. The services provided in the tire center are limited to rotation, balancing, repair, inflation check, and road hazard warranty on only the tires purchased at BJ's and not available for tires not purchased at BJ's. All services will be conducted indoors and not in the parking lot or other outside areas. Additionally, the bay doors of the Auto Tire Center must be opened only during the ingress and egress of a vehicle being serviced, and the garage doors shall remain closed while the tire center services are being performed. And that last part was a condition of the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval of the PDD. That recommendation carried forward to the Township Board and was approved. The second item in the PDD amendment is that the on-site trash compactor shall not be operated between 10 p.m. And 6:30 a.m. So not after 10 p.m. Nor before 6:30 a.m. This was another condition by the Planning Commission that came out of concerns from some of the neighbors of the trash compactor. And so that condition was added into the PD agreement and approved by the board. And finally, the minimum number of parking spaces is reduced from 415 to 399. These spaces will be occupied by cart corrals and the tire center bay door entrances in front. The layout of the site is mostly the same as what was shown on the PDD plan. So there's nothing major that has changed on the site that's really significant. The only significant items are the architecture of the building. At the September 13th Planning Commission meeting of this year, the applicant had proposed to infill the middle area of the building, which is currently a glass door entrance, which is the one major entrance to J.C. Penney. The applicants have proposed filling that in with brick to match the existing brick, and then having entrances on both sides of it. So BJ's would have two main entrances. And the applicant has, after reviewing those and after staff reviewed those, to look at some other options. Instead of bricking in that middle, the applicant has proposed to put in spandrel glass so that it's vertically consistent with the rest of the building. So that's the only major change for the architecture. And then the west side of the building, the most significant change is to add 3 glass bay doors for the tire service center. For the access management, the original PD agreement restricts the delivery hours from 6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. and those terms will remain in effect. Also, the access drive on the south side of the store to Morton Taylor Road is partially contained on the south side of the subject parcel, and it has many potholes and is poorly maintained. The applicant has noted on sheet 1 of 3 of the site plan a note that states the existing service drive to be repaired as needed to restore to original condition as required by Township of Canton. And also pursuant to the condition of PDD approval, we recommend that the design and condition of the access drive be addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering Services Division during its upcoming review. So we've gotten a lot of comment about that service drive that goes to Morton Taylor Road, and that's in the process of being corrected in terms of the condition of approval. One other item to note is the legal description of the property. The parcel itself for which the PDD agreement applies and for which the site plan is considered. This parcel has a peninsula that goes all the way out to Morton Taylor Road. On the plan itself, it shows the old JCPenney parcel area. After JCPenney was approved, it was later, there was a land division that was subsequently approved that added that peninsula out to Morton Taylor Road. And so that area is reflected on the plan is drawn according to the legal description. There are some minor discrepancies between the recorded legal description and the lot line labels on the survey. I think it's just a matter of dates and the placements on there. And it's sometimes something that comes up during review. And the applicant is in the process of obtaining a survey to reconcile those types of discrepancies. We don't see any of the discrepancies as impactful to the compliance with the zoning ordinance. So any kind of discrepancies should not affect any minimum setbacks or things of that nature. It would just be correcting something that's already there, but nevertheless necessary for a record plan. The last item that I want to mention in the report is that the trash compactor will remain in the enclosure in the northwest corner of the building, same as where JCPenney had it. And there's an underground grease trap that's proposed on the north side of the building. So based on that, our recommendation is approval of the site plan for BJ's Wholesale Club on the subject parcel, subject to the design and condition of the access drive being addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering Services Division, and that the parcel survey be updated on the site plan. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Is the project representative available?
Yes, Brian Amon is allowed to talk here. He's representing the applicant.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Amon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to make a note on the last item you did. I would not say that you're elderly, you're just chronologically advanced. And so that's a great thing. It's always better than the alternative.
I appreciate the insight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And listen, in light of the lateness of the hour, we want to be respectful of your time. Patrick did a great job in summarizing it. We're in complete agreement on the two things he's mentioned about the access drive. The survey on the legal description was finalized today. He'll be seeing that very quickly. So we very much appreciate the time and investment by Patrick and the administration in this, and we look forward to answering any questions you may have. I do have a team of people with me, architecture, construction, engineers. If you need that, we'll certainly be glad to have them answer any question that comes up.
All right, thank you. Let's just go right to the commission and see if there's any comments, questions, or concerns. Commissioner Engel.
No, thanks. I'm all set. Looks like a good project, especially going to get the service drive fixed.
Commissioner Weber.
I'm fine with everything except my only question was about the access drive. Patrick, when you say that engineering is going to be looking at the design and condition of that access drive, I hope that means they'll be looking at ways to improve upon it, not just restore it to its original condition.
Yeah, that's why we included the condition there with engineering services. The existing condition, it may be fine, but that's why I want the engineering services division to look at it, because what I wouldn't want is to restore it to something that may end up with the same problem in the near future, if there's something that can
Well-
be done at the design end.
Right, and that's my concern because whatever's been done, obviously since the original design and any efforts to quote unquote repair it has not been very good. And with this use, it seems to me like we're just gonna be having more truck traffic and potentially more traffic on it in general. So I would hope the look would be to improve it and make it a better construction in general.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'll just quickly respond.
Sure.
Commissioner Weber, we do not disagree with you. I think what you saw in that was that although it was designed, apparently something was missed as it related to the handling of the water that was gathering on it, wasn't properly draining, causing all kinds of issues with it. So as we get into this redesign with the engineers, we're planning to get it fixed in a way that actually survives and is sustainable. And that we think that's going to heavily involve just better drainage as it relates to that and as part of the engineering of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that comment there. Commissioner Okan,
I'm good. I'm excited to fill up that big building.
Commissioner Singh,
No question. It's a good project. Thank you.
Commissioner Eggenberger,
I'm also fine. It looks good. Thank you.
Commissioner Acharya.
Yeah, things look good. The last time the access drive and the trash compactor were the issues, and I think those are being addressed over here. So I'm good with it.
All right. The only concern I have is really not for this project because it's a done deal. We've already discussed the hours of the compactor usage. But I have a question for you, Patrick. Is the 10 o'clock late time, is that standard in Canton in terms of compactors?
I don't know that it is, but we do have a general noise ordinance that would probably discourage operating a trash compactor near a residential area after, and I don't know what hour the decibel level goes way down, maybe 10 o'clock or somewhere around there. But I don't know that that's necessarily standard. This is part
It's
of
not
the
an
PD
ordinance.
agreement.
It's not an ordinance, a township ordinance, like prohibition or anything like that. The reason I say that is because I don't know if any of you have ever seen these compactors. They're very big and they're not designed to be stealth. And so, to have them, if you're adjacent in your residence to these at 10 o'clock at night, you're gonna be annoyed. I mean, there's just no question. So I was just wondering if that's something that we need to look at ordinance wise to kind of like modify that down to, let's say, 8 o'clock as a maximum time for future. I don't know. It's a thought that I had. 10 o'clock to me is pretty late to make that kind of noise, but that's just me. Other than that, I like this project. It sure beats seeing that building become, a Halloween place or fireworks or flea market, and that it'll be occupied by a business that's already successful. So I'm glad to see that come to Canton, and I think it's going to be a good use. To me, I hope we go forward with it and wish them luck. Anybody have a proposal to go forward with this?
Chairman, I'll make the motion. I move to approve the site plan for BJ's Wholesale Club on parcels number 71-040-99-0006-709 at 43690 Ford Road, subject to the design and condition of the access drive being addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering Service Division and the parcel survey be updated on the site plan.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Acharya. Any further discussion? Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on that motion, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Engel? Commissioner Eggenberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Ataria?
Yes.
Commissioner Okan, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes, motion carries.
What
What's
is
next?
what is the timeline for this project as far as, or what is your hope for timeline, Mr. Hammond?
We are looking to actually get into this as soon as possible, but I actually have the gentleman in charge over the construction that can answer that more precisely for you. Lloyd.
Oh, that's all right. I just wondered, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not
We-
something that's way out in the future, in other words.
Oh, no. We are, obviously, the owner of the land is eager to get, start receiving rent in there, and he starts doing that once we get open. And so we're eager to get rolling on this. Obviously, we have to get the legal description resolved and everything else in place, but I would think you're going to start seeing activity around there in this spring, early spring, and hopefully, they'll be open. I'm probably speaking on a term, but probably by May or June, just depending on their cycle, depending, everybody's facing challenges of delivery of equipment and parts and all kinds of things and shelving or whatever, but assuming we can make it, they're going to work as quickly as they can to get this facility open.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have some work to send to staff, staff referral, Motor City Electric. Do I hear a motion to send that to staff?
So moved.
Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on that, please?
Sure, Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Ataria,
Yes.
Commissioner Okan, yes, Chairman Green.
Yes. Patrick, no public hearings coming up?
Not officially. We have some that are, we've got some special land uses and PDDs that are, they're borderline. We're in the process of wrapping up our staff reviews to see if they're sufficiently ready for December. So we're kind of at a strange point where I don't want to officially set them, but there's a high likelihood that we could have some by next month. If that's the
Okay.
case, I can notify the planning commission ahead of time just so that we can anticipate those.
Okay, all right, just curious. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for, participating tonight. Anything, anything else to discuss? Anything?
Hey, Patrick,
Questions?
I got a question for you. The new senior, and I can never remember the name of it. The new senior development that just finished construction on Ford Road down by Crimboli's. Looks nice, but their backup generator, this big, huge backup generator sitting right out there in the front, blocking 2 windows and such. What was there a reason why they put it there? They couldn't find someplace else to put it that was a little more aesthetically pleasing?
Yeah, we've heard about that, and I've had to go back to the plans. The plans are a few years old. They predate me at the township, so I went through the plans, and they did show the electric from the road going and connecting to the front of the site. Typically, you're right. We typically see a generator on the side of the building or in the back of the building too. In the front of the building is very rare. So with that being, and it's right in front of the windows. It's one of the most odd places you'll see one. At this point, we're going to try to work with the applicant to try to get as good a screening as we possibly can there, just to soften their appearance and try to conceal it as best we can.
Are those
That's
windows?
something-
Are those are those windows? Are they a residential unit or is that an office?
But those may be units.
Jeez.
Is that something that came out after, we approved all of this, or was that something that we should have caught?
I'm not really sure. Sometimes it's very subtle the way that the
So
electric
late addition?
is put there. And I think they had a transformer on the east side of the entrance on the electrical plans. And sometimes things like that are very subtle, but it is something that we've looked at as staff and in reviewing other plans and going through the checklist that we've developed is to try to find those things at site plan review. If they're putting a generator somewhere, try to find that generator and see if that's in a appropriate spot.
If I was going to be a resident there, I would certainly not want. I would hope my rent would be greatly discounted with that. If that's my proposed unit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Doesn't sound pleasing. Any other questions or comments? Anything going on in the township that we need to know about, Patrick? I see the project on Michigan Avenue is they've just been moving earth like crazy down there.
Oh, Amazon.
Oh, we weren't supposed to mention that name, were we?
The
Yeah, I
newspaper.
mentioned that in the paper a month or two ago.
It's a secret.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
they're moving quickly. We have a lot of activity that on that part of the township where Fillmore Place is just northeast of that. So
Yeah.
there's quite a
the
bit of
condos.
activity, quite a bit of development.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, well, if nobody has anything else, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And we'll have to do a roll call vote here. So we'll need,
Come
To
on,
adjourn?
Patrick.
yeah, the Open Meetings Act, every motion's got to be a roll call.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Weber to adjourn and support by, who?
Craig, Me.
Okay, support by Commissioner Engel. Commissioner Okan, would you call the vote on this motion, please?
Absolutely. Commissioner Engel.
yes, and goodbye.
Commissioner Ingerhauser. Oh my God, I did it again. Ingenberg,
Sorry, yes,
your, my apology note is already in the mail.
it's quite all right.
Commissioner Singh,
You're muted.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes, sorry, took me
that's
a while.
right. Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Commissioner Okan, we lost a commissioner. Commissioner
Yeah.
Okan, yes. Chairman
He
Green,
said- He made his motion and said goodbye.
yeah.
That's a yes for me, and I'm glad you can't screw up green.
I know. Thank you. Everybody have a good night.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, everybody.
everybody.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Patrick. Okay.